Good afternoon. We will call the December 19th, 2017 Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust meeting to order. First item is the minutes of the December 8th meeting. Okay, moved and seconded. Voting. And it passes unanimously. Next item is the consent docket.
I'd move the consent docket subject to individual consideration.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any individual considerations? We do have one speaker on item number 01, I believe.
F.
I'm sorry, F1. Yes. Mr. Mitchell Manning. And Mr. Manning, we will need your name and address for the record, and then just to let you know, the public comment is limited to 3 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Mitchell Manning, 5321 Southwest 11th Street, Oklahoma City, 73128. And
Yes.
I'd just like to say I'm the owner of 4M Trenching, and we did have an error on a bid, SC0951, and I made the phone calls as soon as we saw the errors, sent the letters that we were requested, and we apologize and we're humiliated about the error, but it is a legitimate error. It was mathematically done, and we would just like forgiveness on this and hopefully not have our bond forfeited, and we can move on. We've had a good relationship with the city of Oklahoma City in the past, and we want to maintain that. So, thank you.
Okay, yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate your comments.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may, the issue before the board is whether or not to grant the requested release from the bid bond. The concern that we have is that it is the obligation of the party requesting to show the error. And as Mr. Manning said, they called after the error, but the information that was provided, we didn't think provided us enough information to show the error as required by the statute. And that's why there was a follow-up letter and a couple other follow-ups to Mr. Manning. And so I believe that staff provided Mr. Manning information about today's agenda to tell him that the item was on today so that he could be heard by the board, should he so desire, which of course he does. And so now the issue before the board on F1 is whether or not there is adequate showing of an error for which to not call his bid bond but waive that. And so that's what we would need a policy decision from the board on.
Okay.
It's 5% of the bid.
You know, the question that's out there, to me always, is the integrity of the Competitive Bidding Act, which is what we have to follow. And if you take a look at the listing of the projects, the bid tab, there were, I don't know, there were 9 or 10 bidders, and it was a pretty good spread, and he was only 10% lower than the second bidder. 10% is a lot of money. It's still $300,000, but if you just glance at the bid tab, it doesn't look like he's particularly out of line. I mean, there's a number of bidders that are in that area. And, you know, we don't want to get in a situation where contractors start bidding low, and if they don't like the bid, they can walk away from it. That's not what the Competitive Bidding Act is for, and that's why there is a bid bond that goes with the bond, or with the bid at the time it's submitted.
May I ask a question? Did Mr. Manning contact the city prior to the opening of the bids?
I think that would be a good question for Mr. Manning. I know that he contacted staff a couple hours after the bids were open,
I believe it was the next morning
Okay.
after the bid, because it bid on Wednesday, and I believe it was
The
later
check-
in the day, so.
Well, my question was, did you contact the city prior to the bids being opened?
No, no.
Okay.
It was submitted and not realized that there was an error until after the bid was.
What was the error?
I'm sorry. It was
What
in-
was the error?
It was in the dewatering on the project. It was how was the error made? Is that what you're asking?
Well, was that a lump sum bid for
No,
the
it was
dewatering?
linear foot.
Linear foot, okay,
Linear foot,
well.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. And our system just rounded. When the estimator put in the number, he put in the number wrong, and it rounded it into the bid number, and it just went by both of us.
So what number did you intend to put in, and what number was put in?
With the quantity that was meant to put in should have been 1,300, and the quantity that was put into our system was 130, so when that rounded those dollars into it, it threw out that low number. And it was just an error, just a mistake that got by us. So,
But when you enter into our bid system, the quantities are fixed. You're
I
not-
know, but the
you're not
unit
entering
price,
the
you
grid.
understand, when we build, the way our estimating system works is you build a bid form, the bid, the quantities that are bid, and then you actually work into each activity, and you have to put in the quantities of those activities into that, and he just put it in incorrectly, and it
Trust,
rounded those numbers into it.
BidSync does the calculation.
Right.
They enter the numbers.
Our unit price was incorrect. Our unit price.
Okay, because-
Way off, yes.
because of
I'm
the
sorry how it was
quantity.
done, but our unit price was way off. Was way, way off.
And so your unit price was how much?
I believe we were $5,
Okay, and you
and it should have
intend to
been
be
about
50?
$155, yeah.
Well, that's not a factor of 10, sir.
I'm sorry?
Okay.
But it was an honest mistake, sir. We've never, had an issue like this. We've always tried hard. It was just a mistake. It's just an error in our bid. Human error.
And I appreciate what you're saying, but don't we open up Pandora's box if we don't enforce this? and
I'm sorry.
the bid? I mean, is there a precedent in the past for doing something like this?
We have rejected requests in the past and had contractors make the decision to either forfeit the bid or do the job.
It seems like to me that every time something like this happens and it's based upon human error,
Yeah.
we'll be dealing with it over and over and over.
Well, the Competitive Bidding Act was put together for a purpose, and it served us well over the years.
And I feel terribly sorry for you, and I appreciate you coming up here and telling us what happened, and I also appreciate the fact that you want to do business with us again in the future, and we will hopefully do business again in the future.
Right. I understand. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Manning? Thank you again, Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor.
you're welcome.
Appreciate it. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket as presented. And without any other discussion, we will vote on it. And it's approved unanimously. The next item is the concurrence docket.
I move the concurrence docket subject to individual consideration.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? We will now vote on the concurrence docket, and it's approved unanimously. Next are items for individual consideration. The first item is item A1, special warranty deed from Park Place LP Project WR-0052. Chris, any information that we should be aware of on that item?
Mr. Chairman, this is a policy A1, which enables us to pay the difference of the water mains that are installed when we ask the developer to put in larger mains than normal. So this item enables us to pay the difference of that oversized main for $17,736.
Thank you. Okay. So Francis, would this be A1 that we're voting on separately, or A1 and 2 can be combined?
You can vote.
Okay, we're going to combine item 1 and 2 of item A.
I'd make a motion to approve A1 and 2.
Second?
Okay, voting, and it's approved unanimously. Next is item B, resolution agreeing to file application with the Oklahoma Water Resource Board for financial assistance through the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund Loan Program. Chris, any comments on this one?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, every year we put together a list of projects that we would present to the Oklahoma Water Resources Board for consideration for funding under their state revolving fund program. This resolution would enable us to apply for the loan,
Yes.
and then the subsequent item, C, would authorize the trust to accept the loan. This was approved by council this morning.
Yes. Okay. Now, Francis, may I ask you this as far as the minimum number of voting to approve this? Is it item B, we just need a majority? Yeah. And then item C, we need 3 votes in the affirmation. Okay. So we will first do item B.
I'd move the resolution agreeing to file the application.
Second?
Okay, voting. It's approved unanimously. Now, item C. Chris, did you want to make any comments on that one?
Mr. Chairman, this item would enable the trust to enter into an agreement into debt with the Water Board to accept up to $76 million in state revolving funds. The significance of this SRF funding is that under normal bonds, we have to escrow 10% of the amount of bonds, and so for the term of the bond. So that would cost our ratepayers the interest on that additional 10%. Under the SRF funding, we do not have to escrow funds, so we save that interest. So we try to work with the Water Board to fund as much as they're able to fund for us. Mm-hmm. We're asking for up to $76 million here for drinking water projects. They'll meet next month to decide how much they will allow us to have under this program.
I see. So just because we request $76 million doesn't necessarily mean we'll obtain that amount.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
I'd move for approval agenda item 5C.
Second?
thank you. Voting, and it's approved unanimously. Next, items from trustees.
Just want to tell everybody Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Very much the same?
Thank you. Okay, general manager reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'd like to wish everybody happy holidays. Everybody has a great holiday season. Secondly, I'd like to give an update relative to the previous items. We requested $68 million and some change from the Water Board out of their SRF for our wastewater and our surface water projects in a prior meeting. They met today and approved that funding. So they will award us $68 million plus or minus dollars under the SRF for wastewater and surface water projects. So that's good news. Secondly, the lakes are in pretty good shape. Most of them are still fairly full with the exception of Draper, and it's filling. It's about 6 feet down. Atoka's about 4 feet down. So as Draper comes up, Atoka goes down. And that's our plan for this time of the year.
It's amazing, though, that if you compare to last year, even though we've been in a drought for the last several months, every lake is higher than it was last year with the exception of Canton, which is just a couple
Canton's
of tenths.
full, yeah.
But it's just a couple of tenths lower
Right.
than it was a year ago. But it's
Right.
essentially full.
Right, Hefner is about a foot down, Overholser are about a foot down, so yeah, they're holding their own this year. The Performa expenses for water are a little low. The revenues are about normal. Wastewater is normal on both sides, so we're doing well. We're selling water and paying bills.
Great.
We do have a presentation today. Vanessa Aguilar is going to tell you all about our performance measures and where we stand.
Great, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and trustees. Today I have a brief presentation for you on our performance measures and our accomplishments for 2017. So earlier in the year when we presented the AQUIT budget to you, we incorporated new core business initiatives for you. And as we were developing our business initiatives, we also needed to develop key performance indicators, which would allow us to assess our efficiency and effectiveness of our organization. So it's pretty much telling us how are we doing and are there areas that we need to improve. So performance measures are the foundation for continual improvement process where we're establishing those measures, we're monitoring and reporting on the measures, and then we're coming back and assessing if there's area that needs improvements, and whether that's through reallocation of existing resources or budget initiatives to add additional resources to make those improvements. So we developed key performance indicators for all of our divisions, and most of these key performance indicators, or KPIs, are internal to the organization to help us make improvements. In administration, for example, some of the performance indicators that we have are Tier 1 systems running 99.5% of the time. An example of our Tier 1 system is our SCADA system for the water treatment plants, the lift stations, the Atoka pipeline, and in the future, the wastewater plants. We're wanting to make sure that those systems run uninterrupted most of the time. Additionally, in administration, we're looking at our injury rate. We established a safety program back in 2008 where our injury rate was in the double digits. We've been able to successfully reduce our injury rate with the addition of safety personnel, making improvements in our infrastructure related to safety, and by furthering our safety training and education to our employees, we are well below an injury rate of 8 at this point. In customer service, we looked at one of our key performance indicators, our average call handling time, which is an industry-based measure. Right now, we're looking at improvements to our billing system, which will allow customer service representatives to have all the information they need on their screen when a customer calls in. We're minimizing the time call handling by having that information readily available. In engineering, we've established an asset management program whereby we're doing condition assessments and inventory of our pipe infrastructure, both water and wastewater. We're starting with the wastewater program first, and one of our performance measures that we're looking at is making sure that we have at least 10% of our gravity wastewater pipe assessed annually. In line maintenance, some of our industry measures that we have is the number of main breaks per 100 miles of pipe, and on the wastewater side, the number of sanitary sewer overflows per 100 miles of pipe. And these measures will help us look at the maintenance effectiveness that we have in our program, or if we need to make any adjustments in our capital design program. In water quality, one of our measures in water quality is looking at the water quality service complaints, the aesthetic value of the drinking water, whether it be red water issues, taste, or odor. Wastewater quality, in an effort with our wastewater contractor, we identified critical assets at our wastewater treatment plants, and we identified the need to make sure that these critical assets were repaired within 30 days or less, that way reducing the impact to our wastewater treatment plant operations. We created a new division in FY 2018, Fleet Services, to manage all of our needs for our fleet and our fueling infrastructure. And one of the key performance indicators for fleet we determined is the scheduled vehicle preventative maintenance inspections completed within 24 hours. To us, it was important making sure that we had equipment and trucks back to the crews within a day to reduce the impact to our operations. The City of Oklahoma City has a citywide performance management system which integrates strategic business planning, the budgeting process, and performance management. This fall, the Utilities Department was a part of updating our strategic business plan, in which we looked at our issues, our strategies, and our performance measures for each of our divisions. And the Leading for Results program, it focuses on performance measures that are for the customers or for the public. So we focus more on the providing excellent customer service in our LFRs. On this next slide here, you can see that the public can access our performance measures in LFR on okc.gov at any time, and they can go through the different departments for utilities, for example, and look at our performance level at any given time. Just going through by the numbers for 2017, we were reaffirmed our AAA bond ratings by Standard & Poor's. We were able to complete record requests within 30 minutes about 91% of the times. These record requests being either an action center, somebody coming into our engineering help desk, or a phone call from one of our divisions or a different department. Water quality treated about 35 billion gallons of water this year, and line maintenance repaired over 1,200 main breaks. Customer service received over 500,000 calls, and engineering through their R&R program has been adding more miles of pipe into our system, where we're currently maintaining over 3,800 miles of pipe in the system. And lastly, line maintenance has successfully responded to wastewater backup calls within 2 hours about 96% of the time. Looking at some of our accomplishments for 2017, this year the Oklahoma Water Resources Board approved our Sardis water rights permit, which allows us to secure additional water supply for the future well into going through 2060. Additionally, in the summer of 2017, both City Council and Aqua approved our water conservation plan. And most recently, in November, the City Council adopted multi-year rate adjustments, which we completed our cost of service study and allowed us to fully implement our conservation-oriented rates. And some of our accolades for this year, this fall, we received a few awards. The Oklahoma Water Resources Board Water for 2060 Excellence Award for our water conservation program and practices. The Association for Metropolitan Water Agencies awarded us the Gold Award for exceptional utility performance. And then lastly, Oklahoma City hosted the Southwest AWWA conference here, in which Oklahoma City won the Best in Taste contest. And now we're able to compete at the national level for the Best in Taste. And so with that, I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Yeah, very good report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just a question. If the water coming out of your tap happens to be red, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad, does it?
Mr. Chairman, we have about 1,200 miles of pipe within the city that is older pipe, and the older pipe is not lined. The newer pipe has a lining in it to make sure that it doesn't rust. So the older pipe has rust built up inside. When there are conditions in the water system where water changes direction quickly, whether or not a valve is opened or closed, or just the usage, the general usage changes direction, some of that rust gets knocked off the pipe. And so that's what causes the red water.
I see.
We annually, we turn in a consumer confidence report that indicates the quality of our water pursuant to EPA regulations. We test thousands we run thousands of samples a year to make sure that we adhere to very, very strict EPA standards. Their primary standards are health-related.
Yes.
Their secondary standards are aesthetics. The red water is an aesthetic standard. Okay. So you have color, taste, odor, and they develop those standards to help promote the use of public water supply as the primary water supply, because it is the most consistent and generally, I hate to say this, but I'm a little biased, generally more healthy for the public to use than other water supplies.
Yes.
And so we have not had a violation in the primary standards. We have had some color. We have had some taste. Sometimes during the year, the chlorine concentration gets a little high because of just the weather conditions themselves. So you may have a little taste, you may have a little odor, but the water is absolutely in compliance with EPA standards.
Great, thank you. Good to know. Okay, will any citizens to be heard today? All right, we are adjourned.